take control.
Feel the enemy take control.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
So early, so early in the morning.
Abrams on the hill.
Abrams on the hill.
Tank commanders ready to kill.
Tank commanders ready to kill.
Give the order, fire well.
Give the order, fire well.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
Sniper on the ground.
Sniper on the ground.
Moving by without a sound.
Moving by without a sound.
Locks and loads a single round.
Locks and loads a single round.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
Apaches in the sky.
Apaches in the sky.
F-16s go zooming by.
F-16s go zooming by.
The enemy is about to die.
The enemy is about to die.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
So early, so early, so early in the morning.
So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to finally give my leadership. I talk about leadership all the time, but I realize I've never given a definition of leadership yet. And I'm going to do it. And this is, I think I wrote this in my book. I can't remember. I think I should have wrote this in my book because it's talking about leadership. But I'm going to talk about what is leadership. And it's going to be 3 dimensions. Now, this is coming from my own thoughts and my years and years of study leadership. So I don't know if anyone else has ever said this definition. If they are, I'm not copywriting them at all. And I'd be interested. It's amazing we have the same opinion. But this is coming from my own research. This is not from anyone else. For instance, as you know, General Schwarzkopf, which I look upon General Schwarzkopf as probably being the last good modern general, he defined leadership in terms of competence and character. I have a little different technique. And so what I'm trying to do is, the reason I'm giving this definition is generally speaking, I believe the baby boom generations have really fucked up America. Generation X, we fucked it up too. So what am I doing? Sort of like that military leader and a father figure, I'm trying to give leadership to the younger generations and say, learn the mistakes that we did and good luck with you because we screwed it up. Do better than we did. And what is leadership? The first is leadership is composed of 3 dimensions. Now I picked 3 because 3 is an easy number to remember. When I did Army ROTC, and I did very well in Army ROTC when I became commissioned, they had 16 leadership dimensions. I don't quite know if I could remember them off the top of my head. I had to when I was in Army ROTC. 16 is a lot. It can get confusing. So I'm focusing on 3. This is probably could be one of the best leadership classes you're ever going to get, even though I'm censored. So if you're ever going to listen to what I'm saying, this would be very good to listen now. It could change your life. We don't get it. There's 3 different dimensions. The first 2, if you could succeed with the first 2, you will be a successful person. But this is also the definition of a sociopath. We know many people in America and the world are very successful, but you could describe them as scumbags. They're sociopaths. They will step on you. They will cheat you. They'll do whatever they can. But at the end of the day, they are successful, but they're not leaders. Why? Because if we could have it, we would kill them. Sort of like the emperor of Rome getting assassinated. But here are the 3, and I'm doing them by priority. The first one is called intelligence. Now, you've heard it many times in America that the secret to success is hard work. I'm telling you that's bullshit. I'm going to give you an example. People who work at McDonald's, that's a pretty hard work. People who you may not understand about the military, but there's this job in the military called 11 Bravo, an infantry soldier. That's pretty hard work being an infantryman. I'll tell you the stories when I trained on them. Infantry soldiers also have the lowest test scores for ASVAB, meaning it's the lowest intelligence level to get into the military. But it's pretty hard work being an infantryman. It's the same thing, I don't know, being a construction man outside. So the point being is there are plenty of people that do really, really hard work, but they're not very successful. Why? Because they're not very smart. In fact, if you wanted to do one of the biggest differences between an officer and an enlisted guy is you better be intelligent. One of the worst things you can have your enlisted say is, boy, that LT, that captain, our commander, he seems kind of stupid. He seems kind of dumb. That's not good. So one of the things, you have to be intelligent. I believe so. Like Elon Musk, when he brags about how hard does he work, I think a lot of it's bullshit. I believe first and foremost, these are extremely intelligent people, along with some other stuff. And oh, by the way, when you're doing stuff, when you're the commander, when you have your own company, when you're making all the profits, it's easier to work harder. It's yours. So that whole thing about, yeah, I have to work hard. Yeah, when it's your ship, when it's your business, when you're doing stuff you like to do, you'll naturally work harder. But the number one thing to success is intelligence. If you study anyone, even in the Jews, I'm going to give you an example in Israel. There's many different types of ethnicities of Jewish. There's Sephardic, Mizrahi, and then there's something called the Ashkenazis. The Ashkenazis are considered the European Jews. We're not going to get in an argument. Some people say they're not really Jews, they're Kharzais. I'm not going to argue with you. Maybe you're right. But anyway, just go with me. In Israel, the leadership, the main leadership in Israel are what's called the Ashkenazi Jews. They have the highest level IQ. So when I think of successful people getting into West Point, I know getting into West Point very well. It took me 3 tries to get into West Point. So I knew the entire admissions process. Getting into West Point, it's in 3 categories: academic, leadership, and physical fitness. Academic is 60% to get into West Point. The next is leadership. For instance, I was an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts. That gives you points. If you were the president of student council, all these things in high school, there's all these leadership points, 30%. And guess what? You have to take a physical fitness test to get into West Point. It's not like the Army test, but it's sort of like that. You do pull-ups, you do sprinting. It's only 10%. Why? Because they don't want stupid people as West Pointers. I agree. So the first thing is intelligence. But at the same time, intelligence can be broken up into 2 factors. I use a lot of this military jargon because it's easy to explain, but it's the same thing in the civilian world. In the military, you have what's called technical experts. These would be warrant officers. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Warrant officers are kind of below me, but they're above enlisted guys. And then you have senior enlisted guys like the sergeants. Those are the technical experts. When I was in the military, and you could say, hey, Lieutenant Baumblatt, this howitzer 245, I don't know how does this thing work? I don't fucking know. Get the warrant officer here, get the sergeant. They have technical expertise. Think of them as the mechanic, the electrician. They know that weapon system very well, and they should. What should I know? You have to understand the conceptuality of the big picture. So if you're running a company, it's the same thing. You're a father, and they could say, hey, how exactly do you make baby food? You better make baby food right, because if you make it wrong, it's I don't know. That's what my wife does. She understands the baby food. I don't fucking know. But all I know is I protect and I provide. And I provide also the education, meaning you have to be intelligent enough to understand the big picture. And what is that big picture? Mission, objectives, organization, basically strategy and organization. Sort of what Donald Trump is. And many people have argued with him that he's a stupid person. I think many ways in the technical aspects, Donald Trump is either stupid or he doesn't care. That's normal. But in the broader range of the strategic view, you have got to be smart. You have to understand. So that's one, is make no doubt about it. I believe the most successful trait that a person can have for success is intelligence. That's who we are. Is there also a difference in terms of races? It is what it is. It's a different discussion, but I'm telling you. So the number one thing of understanding leadership is your intelligence. Now, the problem is there's a lot of DNA involved in intelligence, but you could also learn. But what you want to do is understand. Now, you can also become a technical expert. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to lead people, you don't lead things, you lead people, you lead groups, you lead companies, you lead employees in a company, you lead citizens in a country. You have to be able to conceptualize the mission. And Donald Trump as president, it's very difficult. He's looking at basically the 2 building blocks, security and economic, but it's intelligent. We could do another video, go on it. The first is intelligence. The second, no fucking fear. I could do a movie when I reported my platoon. I reported my platoon, and this is part of it. And when I mention that is when I talk about no fear, it is not about you being a big, tough person. It helps. I'm 6'5", and I was the captain of the heavyweight captain of the West Point boxing team. It helps. Same thing like presidents are tall people, but you don't have to do it. The main thing you have to have is no fear. So I'm going to give you an example. When I reported to my platoon, it was sort of out of the movies in an interesting way. I reported to Germany, but my platoon was already pre-deployed in what's called, I'm forgetting these terms, it's called CMTC, Combat Maneuver Training. It's really when we're doing war games. My post was called Baumblatt, sort of like my last name. My troops were already pre-deployed. So they were already getting ready for deployment. And as you can imagine in the movies, they were in this big barracks of all bunk beds. The officers were in a separate quarters, but all the enlisted were coming. And they knew that 2 West Point lieutenants, me and my buddy, were going to report there and be platoon leaders. They knew about it. And we learned this from West Point. We said, when you first initially make contact with your platoon, it's one of the biggest things. They're going to judge you. And I said, fuck it. I'm going to break the ice pretty quick. I always carry my boxing equipment with me. I show up there. There's like over 80 to 100 people in this huge big bay. It's almost like World War II barracks because it's a pre-deploy. Everyone's on bunk beds. And they see me and the other classmate at West Point come in there. And I was quick. I'm like, second platoon. I believe I was second platoon leader. My buddy was first platoon leader. And I said, gentlemen, my name's Lieutenant Baumblatt. I'm going to be the platoon leader. And you can imagine, just like the movies, they're like, who's this dipshit? Like, you kind of hear it. And I said, anyone box around here? Who's a boxer? And I knew what they were going to say. Sure enough, he's a boxer. He was all Army. I said, I got my boxing gloves. Let's box. So I put him on the spot. And what did I do? In a nice way, I beat the shit out of him. So what did I do? I cut the ice, and I immediately got their respect. You don't have to do that, though. You don't. Because it's possible, even me at 50 years old, there's going to be a time where you're not the toughest guy in the room. But think about a Napoleon. You need to look at those men and say, listen, I don't care how big I am, I am not afraid. I'm not afraid to let my career go down the toilet, meaning with my superiors. I'm not afraid of you physically punching me, because if you do, I'm going to get my gun, I'm going to blow your brains out. They have to feel of a fearless leader. Fearless. That doesn't mean you have to have big muscles and you can fight, but they need to know that you are fearless. You will take your career and fucking throw it in the toilet, meaning you will stand up to anyone. They have to sense a fearlessness. There's probably a correlation with testosterone with that. And we can explain other videos. So those are the first 2 elements. You show me a person who's really smart, who's fearless, and guess what? They're going to be successful, but they might be a sociopath. And a sociopath is not a leader. But a sociopath, we know these people. They're also in our government. They're successful, but they're called scumbags. And they will stab you in the back. So what's the third element of leadership? The first element is intelligence. The second element is that sense of fearlessness. Regardless of how big you are, if you know, it helps. That's what I'm saying. It helps if you learn some martial art, but you don't need it. Kind of think of a mafia person. They need to feel that you are fearless, that you will die any day, that you don't care about your career. They need to feel that sense of fearlessness. That's the second. The third element, what is it? It's called loyalty. We're not talking about Christianity, though I have nothing against Christianity and I'm pro-Christian. It has nothing to do with this thing called the Constitution. They need to feel that if you're going to lead them, they are part of your tribe, your family, and you have loyalty to them. Not necessarily that you have loyalty to other people outside their tribe. So as the president of the United States, Donald Trump, when he said America first, what do we expect? We expect him to put American citizens, which this tribe is too diverse now. It's not going to work. It's going to split. But in general, we want a sense of loyalty, which we don't. Our government is full of traitors. They will put Israel before us in any day. As long as the money's there, they will sell us out. But if you have these 3 characteristics that your people know, that they say, you know something, he is very intelligent. He doesn't know his ass from his elbow on this engine block. And I don't even think he knows about this weapon system, or even I don't think he understands how this computer program works. But in the general strategy, in the general organization, this guy is sharp, intelligent. 2, you need to be fearless. You could be a short guy. You could have small muscles, whatever. It hurts you a little bit. You could still overcome it, but you need to be fearless. You need to be able to say, if tomorrow I die, fuck it, I die. No one's going to fucking push me around, to include my commanders. And if that means putting my career on the line and flushing it down the toilet, I don't give a fuck. I'm not afraid of anything. That's respect. They'll give that. And the third, they will follow you to battle and they will die for you. But they need to know you are loyal to them. If they don't have that feeling, it's not going to work. And now you're called a sociopath. Those are the 3 levels of leadership. That's never been told before. And if it is, that's coming from all my years of experience. And if anyone looks at those 3 and puts them together and thinks our United States government has that, if Wall Street has it, if Silicon Valley has it, meaning these are the people who run us, or God forbid, the FBI and the CIA, and even how pathetic it is, even West Point doesn't have it anymore. It's not. And we don't have leadership. And I don't believe we're going to relearn these leadership lessons until guns and ammo are going to come. Why? That same story of hard times. As you like it or not, the reason we don't see a change as bad as it is because you haven't seen anything yet. The system is going to have to get worse before it gets better. It's the same thing with a man. When do you see a hero in times of danger? When you see that building burning is then when you might see a hero come and save a woman out of a burning building. But there needs to be danger before a hero can come. Sometimes with leadership, that same process, until you feel that this system is destroying itself, when danger is coming and you say, we need a leader. I'm not changing the subjects, but we all know even cuck MAGA people, when you mention the name Adolf Hitler. But part of the reason why Adolf Hitler was able to become who he was, if you go back to that time in Germany, the Weimar Republic, Germany was basically a toilet bowl. It was bad. And bad times require strong leaders. You have not seen it yet. And I like Donald Trump, but what did I say? The best is yet to come. This country is going to get worse and worse and worse. And you're going to see a new form of leadership. And I don't believe it's going to be unified. That's going to bring the country together. It'll split. It is what it is. But you haven't. But if you want to see strong leadership, you're going to need to see strong problems, or we'll say big problems. But when everything, and that's the same thing we say in the military, there are wartime generals and peacetime generals. And we really haven't had a war. These are just war games. That's why these generals don't care. Afghanistan, Iraq, if you're a military veteran who died in the cemetery, in the graveyard, they don't care. They don't care because it wasn't a real war. It's a war game. It's all about games. But generally speaking, peacetime generals are administrative generals. They're managers. Wartime general. Think of a guy like Patton. When there's war, when the country is literally dependent on its survival, they want to unleash the dogs of hell, and they want guys like General Patton. I knew it was in me. This is who I am. And when I was in the military, I realized it was an absolute joke. It was corrupt and incompetent. And what's the only thing I realized? I'm quitting. I'm out. I thought the FBI was going to be better. Same shit, even worse in many ways. And I just quit. The reason we're not seeing top leaders yet is I'm telling you, the system's not getting worse. The same reason, if you're a MAGA, we both agree, I do believe Donald Trump is the best president in my entire life. Why? Because if Donald Trump tried to run as president back in the 1980s, the 1990s, when it was the good times in America, he would not have won. Why? Because Americans would say, this guy's a racist, I'm not going to tolerate. But when Donald Trump chose to run as a president, the scenario was already getting right. That people in America were already starting to realize this system's not working, it's getting worse, and we want a strong leader. Sure, he's politically incorrect. He says some stuff that might be overboard. We don't care. We want a strong leader. And I'm telling you, this situation is going to get worse and worse. And everything that I've said now, that I guarantee I've been censored, and a lot of people haven't helped me out because they use the same cuck terminology of, well, I'd like to help out David, but the guy's just a racist. Keep it up, because when this problem in America gets worse, you don't care. Because I'm telling you, General Patton, which I believe is probably one of the best generals that America's ever produced, you ask yourself, if General Patton was alive today in the U.S. Army, would he survive? He wouldn't. He'd be fired. General Patton would be fired from the United States Army for politically correct reasons. But we know that General Patton is the best of the best. Why? Sometimes leadership and environment or the situation has got to go hand in hand. For the same reason, I don't believe a guy like Adolf Hitler would have ever become the Chancellor of Germany in another time. But the situation was right. And when the situation gets really, really bad, you don't care. You want strong leaders that will get the job done. Donald Trump presented himself like that. But the problem is what's that last issue on leadership? I believe he's intelligent. I believe he's fearless in many ways. Remember when he took a bullet in the ear? He has more courage than most of the military officers. But that last one, loyalty, I'm wondering, is it truly with American citizens? Is he compromised with other things, with this Epstein? But I'm going to end it here. We'll do more videos. But if you could understand those three concepts of intelligence, of fearlessness, and loyalty, then you will have the building blocks to understand leadership. And then if you can understand that, then you can understand my situation on why the systems aren't working. I should never be here. I should never be speaking here. And that faggot Navy SEAL, and I'm using him to show how horrible the military leadership is. That faggot Navy SEAL, Van Orden, who's a congressman, you're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. And you know the right thing to do. If a military veteran says he's got military corruption, same thing with this guy, Morgan Luttrell, who's another Navy SEAL piece of shit in Texas. You know about me, Morgan. I beat your fucking ass in. What you people are doing is wrong. And sooner or later, if America thinks a revolution is going to happen, I'm telling you, there's going to be a military coup that's going to happen because our military is going to split. And sooner or later, Americans are going to realize what leadership means. And if you think I'm wrong, who is probably the premier leader of America? Probably George Washington, I would nominate. And you ask yourself, if George Washington was alive today, would he take this shit? No way. And what would he say? He'd say, well, during my time, me and the men, we used guns and ammo to solve this problem. And I'm telling you, the same thing's going to happen now. Until then, I appreciate your support. If you could click like, send this out. I appreciate it. David Baumblatt from Terrabin's Leadership, telling the Patriots lead to victory.